We know that case management is not a new concept for our customers. And in fact, thousands of you have been doing case management for years using the products from our portfolio. This demonstration is the way that we see the next generation of case management working. And to set up the demonstration, I'm going to give you the following overview. Tracy is going to be our customer, and she's bought something online from a vendor, a very expensive camera, and it never showed up. She became concerned, and then her credit card bill came in. And not only was she billed for something she never received, the bill was double what she thought she should have been charged. So she's very upset. Well, she's going to contact her bank and end up talking to a dispute agent. He's going to get some help from a fraud agent. And then I'm going to actually show you how the business analyst can tune up and tailor this case and show you what you can expect from a business analyst perspective. Now, when Tracy said that she had a problem, she could phone in, she could use the web, she could fax in a form. When she phones in, it could be that the call center fills out the form for her. But either way, a piece of paper is coming into the system. Now, when it comes into the system, it doesn't immediately go into the work queue of our dispute agent because the tool can automatically kick off a variety of appropriate actions. Now, in this case, we went ahead and automatically generated a customer history. So now we know that Tracy, who is complaining today, is a really good customer of our bank. We want to be kind to her. She has a good account history with us. She has done a lot of business with us. We also automatically generate information about the merchant that she's complaining about. Dispute information, last statements, all sorts of relevant information. And when that set of materials came together, then we put it into the inbox or task box of John. So now I'm taking on the role of John, the dispute agent. I can see there is a charge dispute. So let's go and see what I have to do. Now, one of the first things you'll notice is John gets a display that includes a number of business analytics elements. So there is a lot of Cognos information here. With analytics about the number of disputes involving this merchant that our customer is complaining about, the customer sentiment and how it's doing over time, our transaction volume with that merchant, and interestingly, using our text analytics components, analyzing what people are saying about our merchant, and we can see that the merchant is actually doing pretty poorly. So as a dispute agent, I have a pretty good understanding of what's going on in this situation. And my predisposition is to understand that there's probably a problem with the merchant. One of the other things that's happened is that we've automatically kicked off a communication to IBM SPSS Decision Manager 6, which has come back with its predictive score. Based on 3 years of history, we believe that there is a high likelihood that the merchant has been involved with fraud in this claim. So we've gathered a lot of information here before a human even gets to take a look at the situation and decide what to do. Now, what I'm going to do here is say, as the dispute agent, this is not just a situation where I need to refund my client's money and do a reversal of charge back to the merchant. There's something else here. I believe there is fraud involved, and I want to bring this to the attention of our firm's fraud investigator. Now, first I might want to contact him. So you'll see here I have access to all the different members of the team. And here Frank Adams is one of our fraud agents. So here I'll initiate a chat with Frank. Say, hey Frank, do you have a second? And I can describe that we have actually had a jump in the number of disputes that Cheatham Camera that's occurred with Cheatham Camera, and in fact that we have a new one that's just come in today, and we're suspecting that there's some fraud. And Frank suggests that we go ahead and initiate a fraud investigation. So what I'm going to do is go over here and click on New Activity. So what I'm doing is now generating a dynamic task. And I'm going to call this charge dispute review. And what I want, or what I'm asking for here, is that I want a full documentation review on this particular merchant. And I know that our agent is Frank, so I will go ahead and add him to the activity and initiate that activity. So I'm sending that off to him, and essentially I'm asking him to take a look at what's going on. So now I'm going to switch roles for a second, and I'm going to be Frank. Now you should notice right from the beginning that there's a big difference here. As John, my world is a world of cases that is coming into my in basket. But as Frank, I live in a different world. I'm not a full-time person who's taking cases of disputes off the top of this queue. I'm in a fraud job. I'm looking at lots of other issues. So my work environment is really more of the Lotus Vulcan vision of an integrated workbox that has email, has RSS feeds, Atom feeds, collaboration, social networking, all coming together into my work environment. And in that work environment, I can get a notification that something new is going on. There's an important feed in my inbox. And so I can see here that John has just assigned a case to me. And I can decide to go take a look at what's going on. When I get this, I'm immediately given the context of information that applies. So since we come at this from the perspective of content management, of course I'm going to make available all of the relevant content documents for the fraud investigator to look at. So even though he's not a user of our case management inbox model, he can still have access to all of the relevant content. Now he has access to not only all of the history and the information that we found, but in fact access to the whole team of people that's engaged with it. He can do instant messaging with them, he can ask their opinion, and then he can add comments. So for instance here, he can see that this actually warrants further investigation and add his comments to the case. Any comments that he makes, any communication he has, instant messaging, same-time messages, and anything else he does in this case, it's all captured into the full case record. So when we are done with this case, we not only know what happened and how we processed it, but we also have an auditable track of exactly what went on. Now you might be wondering, how do we build all that? Especially for the IT folks. Well, IT of course has an integral role in deploying any solution. You have to integrate it, test it, and deploy it. But what we want to do is make it easier for both the line of business executives and team and the IT team by allowing the business analyst to have a much deeper role in what's going on. Let's go over to the role of Paula. Now Paula is a business analyst for this firm, and we're going to have her add a solution in this example. Now, she can build her own solution, or she can work off existing templates. But in this example, we'll have her edit the credit card dispute solution. And she's going to edit it because she has noticed that we have a need for a dedicated fraud agent. Now we can send these things ad hoc off to Frank like we did in the demonstration, but if we continue to do so, then Frank is going to be overloaded. So we're going to have a role for this in the business, and we're going to make it part of handling the overall case. So we'll go ahead and say that we're going to define our solution and begin to select our case types. So in this case, what we're talking about is dispute resolution for both customer and merchant disputes. And I'm going to click on Customize our case types. Now, I'm not asking our business analyst to go off and completely rebuild all of the BPM workflow. I'm just asking her to take a look at what's going on and customize it to make sense. So let's go ahead and work on this. we're going to specifically look at dispute resolution, as we said, and we chose customer and merchant disputes. And now what we can do is actually preview how this looks. And we'll select fraud investigation. And when she selects preview, what she sees is the process associated with this. And if you look at the top, you will see system tasks. And then by role, tasks of the dispute agent and of the supervisor roles. And she realizes here that she needs to add a new role. So we'll go ahead and do that. So here, this is going to be the role of the fraud agent. And now we've added the fraud agent role to our case. Now at this point, we can also look at all of the document types involved. And we can add additional document types. We can modify the way we handle document types. We can do the same for forms, layouts, the screens, reports and analytics, and then enterprise business rules that we use. But let's go back here. Now you can see that the work is now on her desktop, and she can come back to it anytime that she likes. And when she does, she can come in and access any of these specific items directly. So she picks activities. And now when you look at the fraud investigation activity, what you will see is the set of documents that we will assure are generated when we enter into this customer review. And the output is a determination of whether there is fraud, and then a milestone which indicates that the fraud investigation is actually complete. So let's take another look at this. What we might want to do is look at some of the preconditions that exist before this activity would actually be initiated. So usually you would use a tool like iLog to set an enterprise rule to handle things. But sometimes what you might want to do is customize things. So for example, the minimum charge amount that we have in here for a threshold is 25 euros. But maybe we decide that that would send too much unnecessary work in the direction of the fraud agent. So we need to make the cutoff something like 100 euros in order to get a more reasonable workload. And once we click on save, and that's about as tough as it gets. And you'll notice that the charge threshold has changed, and it's noticeable there in the design interface. Now, the other thing that we need to remember is that we just added a new role a few moments ago. So let's go ahead and drag that new role onto the template. Select fraud agent, and we can see that the swim lane has now appeared that represents the fraud agent. So now the whole point of adding the fraud agent is so that they will do the fraud determination step that is currently being done up here. So what we'll do is we'll just drag this down to the fraud agent swim lane. And what we've just done now is customize this process for what makes sense in this business, whether that be for this unit, for this geography, or whatever the case may be. Click Save. Now, if I go back to what it is that you've seen here, in terms of this overall picture, you see a couple of things that I think are really important to point out. The integration with iLog for business rules, Cognos and SPSS for business analytics and predictive analytics, WebSphere Process Server for the choreography and SOA support that's got us some of those automated feeds into our picture before we started even working on the problem. Content and text analytics, and of course, content management and human interaction as you would expect from ECM. And I want to point out something that's very important that we talked about before we even began this, and that is the fact that many of our customers do this today. You can do this today. So even as we evolve the best practices of what advanced case management means and evolve them into the future of what you can do, I can guarantee to you all of your FileNet BPM processes, all of the data associated with them, seamlessly work with no change to the code, no change to the content, no recompiles, no exports. It simply works in this new model. And we're evolving a step beyond what we think anyone else has done. But we're not putting any of your work at risk. In fact, we're encouraging that if you have not already engaged in case management activities, to get going on them today with the confidence that you can move forward with no disruption and only value added and added benefit. Thank you for your time.